What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This time we're going to be at the Mexican Grand Prix and we only lead the championship by 2 points. So if we don't get a decent result here and if we get outperformed by Lando Norris, our championship rival, we could be in jeopardy. You know, if we keep having these poor qualifying performances we've been having recently and can't convert it into a solid points finish in the race, I could see the championship swinging in Lando Norris's favour. Fortunately, Mexico is a track that I typically go quite well at. You may remember Season 1 if you've been watching since then. The Mexican Grand Prix was actually the track where I scored my first points in Formula 1 after an incredibly turbulent first season where I struggled to score points for pretty much the whole season. I finally managed to pick up my first points with a 5th place finish here during a very chaotic Grand Prix. Yeah, since then I've gone on to be a contender here in other races. I think I've got a podium here, Season 2 if I remember correctly, and yeah, we got the win in Season 4 as well. We won't talk about what happened in Season 3, but yeah, so it's a track I quite like, and I'm hoping we go quite well here. Our gearbox is getting pretty worn out, so I think next race in Portugal we're probably going to have to take a penalty on that one and equip a final gearbox to get us to the end of the season. Everything else I think should hold out for the remainder of the season. I'm hopeful that we won't have to take any more penalties, but if we do, I'll probably just take them all at the same time in the same race. Portugal seems like a decent place to do it. It's quite an easy track to overtake at, and it's also one that I have had a lot of pace at historically. I won it in quite dominant fashion in the previous season, so yeah, I'm looking pretty good on that one. And also, to be fair, I would have won it in quite dominant fashion had it not been for Red Bull pulling a very sneaky strategy in Season 3. So I've had 2 very strong performances in Portugal, and the other one was a DNF. So I'm thinking that should go pretty well. But now my focus has to be firmly on Mexico and maximising the amount of points I can grab here. I'm going for the win. I always am at a track like this. You know, once we get into the back half of the season, last 4 or 5 races, I'm always gunning for the win because I know I can do it, and that starts right now here in Mexico as we go on a set of fresh softs for our first flying lap of Q1. You can see Verstappen's just on a 1:15.6. We fire straight back with a 1:15.3, and that puts us into first for the time being. And yeah, hopefully that should see us through on that lap. We don't have to ruin any more tyres, and indeed you can see that we get through in P7 in the end, only 1.5 tenths off of Norris. I definitely could have found a bit more improvement there. It was only my first lap of the weekend, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. But yeah, we probably will need to find a little bit of improvement. I actually did go on a second run, but I wasn't improving and I didn't need to improve, so I didn't complete the lap, so that's why you didn't see that. But now we're on our first run on that slightly used set of tyres from Q1 that I didn't finish a lap on, and we do a 1:15.4, so I was feeling pretty good about that, thinking that we can probably find a significant amount of improvement if we try. And yeah, as we move now through the final few corners, you can see we're up by about 4 tenths, and this is going to be good enough to almost get us into the 1:14s, 1:15.0, and yeah, that was P2 in the end. So looking pretty good so far. I think that we're going to be in the 1:14s by Q3 if this keeps up. You can see Verstappen as well, 1:15.06, 3 thousandths of a second off of him. Meanwhile, Norris only down in P6. Quite a few surprising exits here. We actually had 9 teams in the top 10. It was only AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo that didn't make it. Meanwhile, Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz, Ocon all getting eliminated. Joe was eliminated in Q1 as well, right off the back of a historic podium, first podium ever for a Chinese driver in Formula 1. He gets eliminated in Q1, kind of like Gasly, if you remember when he got that win in Monza, and then in the following race in Mugello, he actually failed to get out of Q1. Just a little bit of trivia. But anyway, we move forward into Q3 now, and yeah, 9 teams. We are the only team on the grid to have both cars in the in Q3, and we kick off the scoring with a 1:15.3 on a used set of soft tyres. They were the tyres we did our final lap of Q2 on, so hopefully we can hopefully we can find a bit of improvement over that. And you can see as we come into the final sector now, we're about 4 or 5 tenths up. So I'm thinking that this is going to be a pretty good lap so far. We're on course to get into the 114s, which we need to do. I think Leclerc got a 114.8 or a 114.7 maybe. We're about 6 tenths up, 5 tenths up, something like that. So we're going to probably find a similar sort of time. It's a 114.7 as we cross the line. And in the end, that's good enough for pole position. And yeah, I was thinking to myself, I wrote actually that I think this is probably one of the best pole laps I've done. Definitely one of the best laps I've done in qualifying this season, where I've kind of been not really on the pace that much. Piastri in P4, not a bad performance from him. Hopefully he can convert that into some strong points in tomorrow's race. And yeah, I got Leclerc and Verstappen directly behind me. Norris once again off the pace, being out-qualified by an Aston Martin, an Alpine, and a Haas as well. So yeah, a little bit embarrassing for him to only be down in P9, but hopefully we can, hopefully we can convert this into a strong points finish, and hopefully those cars can keep him behind for a good chunk of the race. That would be the ideal scenario, and we can hopefully get a really solid points advantage over Lando Norris to really mark out our credentials in this championship. You know, if we win this Grand Prix and he fails to score or only scores minor points, we could be, over 20 points ahead of him in the standings. With only 3 races to go, that is a big margin, especially with a race I'm very strong at coming up. We might not need to push too hard in the final 2 races if that is the case, but now a race we will have to push hard in is about to begin.
Welcome to Mexico City, the most popular city in North America, and home, of course, to the Mexico City Grand Prix. It's a sellout crowd as usual here at one of the shortest circuits on the Formula One calendar. And who, I wonder, will they be cheering on the top step of today's podium? The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, 2.6 miles of track that allows drivers to take full advantage of their cars, reaching speeds in excess of 220 miles per hour. And providing lots of opportunities for overtaking. The circuit features 17 corners, 10 to the right, and the remaining 7 going to the left. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Robinson lines up on pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, Lance Stroll, and Russell. Mick Schumacher, Norris, Albon and Fernando Alonso. They've taken a grid penalty. Gasly, Magnussen, Carlos Sainz and Ricciardo. Perez, Ocon, Nicholas Latifi and Guan Yu Zhou. Lundgaard, Teo Pourchaire, Schwartzman and Yuki Tsunoda. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
Mark has nothing to say on this occasion. We briefly went for the strategy that they were going for until I looked at what all the drivers around me were doing, and they're all starting on the soft, and I imagine doing soft medium. I think the tyre wear that the game is suggesting is not quite what I'm going to experience, and this is just based on the fact that we didn't get the opportunity to do a race strategy program in the dry because it was raining during Q1, so I ended up just doing it in the wet, and therefore I think that this tyre wear is not representative of what our tyre wear will actually be like. So I was just messing around with it a bit, and in the end I settled on a 12 lap stint on the softs, followed by a 24 lap stint on the mediums. And then for once I actually remembered the fuel, and you can see we're over fueled by like 10 laps. So I just plonked this all the way down. And I have to say, looking at this, 38 kilos of fuel in the car seems like a very small amount for 37 laps. You know, you really think we're only going to be burning a kilo of fuel per lap? but you know, I trusted it. We're overfueled by a couple of laps, so it should be okay. And yeah, hopefully we can navigate our way to the finish without too much issue. It took me a while to get off the line there because I wasn't really paying attention, but yeah, everything was fine in the end. I'm going to be saving fuel wherever I can. If we get any safety cars or anything like that, then obviously I'm going to be saving fuel as well. And yeah, hopefully we can have this be a good race. I do think that we're going to burn a bit more fuel than it says, but hopefully the +2 laps should be not too big an issue for us. I guess we'll find out when we get into the race. And yeah, now we line up on the grid. It was a decent parking, only 0.7, but hopefully now that the car actually has a reasonable amount of fuel in it, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. I do wonder whether I may have gone a bit extreme on this. I still feel like overfuel by 10 laps didn't seem representative, but maybe I shouldn't have dicked with it so much when we're on a you know, no race strategy program was run. But anyway, the lights come on. And the lights go out as we switch to the replay camera, and you can see that we have gotten away pretty well compared to Leclerc, and he's already had to tuck in behind me, try and get some slipstream to see if he can challenge me on the run down into turn 1. But as we run on down to turn 1, you can see that he is closing me down a tiny bit, and he pulls to the inside once again. He's going to try and dive up the inside here, I think, and we sweep around the outside of him. He forces us quite wide, which actually allows Verstappen there to get ahead of him as well, and now Verstappen's trying to challenge me, but we hold him off, squeeze him to the outside, and now he's probably going to be trying to look to come up my inside once again as we come on the run down the next straight. And actually no, he's being challenged by Leclerc now, and therefore we are able to hold on to P1, and the battle for P2 rages on behind. P4 is occupied by none other than Lance Stroll at the moment. He has actually managed to get ahead of my teammate Oscar Piastri, and yeah, then Lando Norris has already made his way up into 6th, so a good start for him, begrudgingly for us. And yeah, we're having a pretty good time of things right now. You can see we've already stretched a bit of an advantage over Charles Leclerc. We seem to have quite a lot of pace now that we've taken a lot of fuel out of this car. So yeah, I think things will be looking good for us, and we'll see if we can make our way through as we progress in this Mexican Grand Prix. See if we can continue to extend the advantage out front. You know, I'm a pretty fast driver around this circuit, so I'm feeling pretty confident about our ability if we can break out a DRS range especially. But you can see we were overfueled by 1.8 laps at the start of the race, and already that has gone down to just plus 1.4. And yeah, I mean, keep track of it over the course of this lap. You can see I accidentally broke a bit late there, went a bit deep into that corner. That actually did enable us to save a bit of fuel coming into that. But at the moment, I'm kind of just pushing on the tyres as much as I can, and yeah, paying attention to the fuel. You can see that the delta to the projected fuel is just going down and down and down basically as we progress through this lap. And especially on the main straight, that's the big one. It goes down by like sort of 0.1 laps over the course of just the big long straight. And as we move through this this sort of twisty section, there's a yellow flag deployed. But yeah, I was starting to get a little bit concerned that maybe we were sort of drastically underfueled. A VSC has been deployed that will enable us to save a bit of fuel. And yeah, a lot of DNFs. I'm not sure what's gone on there, but it's now been upgraded to a full safety car, which means I can drop the fuel mix into lean. We'll see what's happened. We're riding on board here with George Russell, and you can see that he had a big spin there, and someone got caught up behind him. That is Schumacher. Going into the back of Schumacher is Perez and Ricciardo and Joe, and then Schwartzman went into the back of Joe, and also I think Ocon went into the side of Schwartzman. And as a result, Ricciardo, Schumacher, Perez, Joe, and Ocon all retired from the race. That is one of the biggest pile-ups I think I've ever seen in Formula One, in any of these games. You know, at least in a career mode versus, you know, online. Online you might see something like that, but yeah, massive pile-up, and we will try and capitalize on that a little bit to save as much fuel as we possibly can. See if we can get the fuel target back to +2. And yeah, I think unfortunately, based on the amount of fuel that we were burning in standard mix when we were actually running, I think we're going to have to do a lot of lift and coast if we want to make it to the end of this Grand Prix. And as a result, we may end up losing out on quite a lot of points here, I think. You can see we're plus 2.2 on the target as we come around the final corner. Safety car's now coming in, so we were able to save quite a bit of fuel. I was really hoping it would stay out for another lap or so. I think that would have been very helpful, but to no avail, unfortunately. And yeah, I think me not messing with the fuel in the past has definitely been the correct play, even if it did mean I was sort of kind of overfueled at the end of the Grand Prix. Leclerc tries to go up my inside here, and now what you're about to see over the course of the next 30 laps is probably one of the worst displays of driving I have ever done in Formula 1 ever, because I just have to do so much lift and coast to get this to the end. I know it says +2 on fuel, but it's going to go down so quickly. I really just have no choice right now but to basically do a massive lift into every corner and then just see where we go from there. As we move into lap 8, you can see that things have fallen off quite dramatically, and Leclerc and Piastri have actually come into the pits, so I think they might have collided with one another, and that moves Lance Stroll in that Aston Martin up onto the podium positions as Verstappen tries to attack us. We do a big lift into turn 1 and kind of coast around his outside a little bit there, and you can see that yeah, we've held him up a tiny bit. We now move on to lap 13, and all the soft runners have pitted except myself. We extended our stint by a lap, because the thing about lifting and coasting a lot is that it also meant that we preserved tyre wear like crazy. We weren't even on 60% when the game projected we were going to be on over 75 by this point. So that was pretty good. We got a good turn in, and we're going to be going on the mediums to the end. I think because of the amount of lift and coast I've done, I would wage to say that probably there'll be a few drivers coming out ahead of me after this pit stop phase. And indeed Leclerc and Piastri do come out ahead. I don't know if they're planning on going to the end on those mediums. They have to do 28 laps on the medium tyres, so I think that might be just a few too many for them. And subsequently they might be stopping again, but I'm not sure. I could have checked, but I actually didn't think about it until I found out the answer to that question. You can see that Stroll has come out very close behind me, and he'll no doubt be challenging me as we come on the run down to the sort of tight technical section of the track, sector 2. We go around his outside as he tries to dive up the inside. That gives us the inside for the following corner, and we just squeeze him out. And that is a lot of what I was doing in this race to try and hold my position. Was a lot of, you know, dive bombs, sort of, you know, squeezing people out on the apex of a corner, you know, braking on the apex of a corner a lot as well. And just, there's only one way to describe what I was doing in this race, which you're going to see, and that is to call it dirty driving. I do a big lift into turn 1 and then just dive bomb Max Verstappen afterwards, you know. Make sure to keep him to the outside and see what I can do. I actually was kind of pushing here because I was quite keen to get ahead of Alonso. Albon has jumped me in the pit stop phase because of the amount of lift and coast I was doing. We dive up Alonso's inside from a long way back. We actually make a bit of contact there as he pushes me off track, but I don't blame him for not seeing me coming. But around the outside, we were able to get the move done while he still got those hard tyres up to temperature. And now there's a few more cars coming into the pits, including Kevin Magnussen. And I think it might only be Magnussen actually, and that is going to move us up into P6. Ahead of us is Albon, Piastri and Leclerc, and then there's also a few cars which I think haven't stopped yet, and those are, I think, Porsche and Schwartzman. So I think I should hopefully come out ahead of them, even if I am doing massive lifts into every single corner basically. But you know, that's all I can do. I've never been so gentle with the throttle ever. You know, I have had a few people comment on the fact that, you know, with the use of traction control and stuff, I find myself on full throttle a lot of the time. But this race in particular, I was really trying to hold on. You can see we're only down to plus 0.5 now, and we've still got 16 laps to go. We switched the inside on Verstappen here as I think someone else, I think it was Porsche, has now pitted, and he's come out somewhere in the train. And yeah, I mean, the train is a very apt sort of description of what's going on here. Schwartzman now pitting as well. You can see Alonso's got ahead of Verstappen momentarily as well. And yeah, basically the entire field, apart from the front 3 cars, are all stuck in a train behind me. I do a massive lift into turn 1, and then yeah, slam on the brakes hard when I need to try and get turned for the corner. And that is just, you know, everything I was doing all race basically was just huge lifts, huge coasting through corners like this one, and just frustrating the cars behind me. by being really quick in the straights and then really, really slow through the corners. There's a yellow flag, as I think someone in this pack is DNFing. I'm not quite sure who it is yet. I think it might actually be Verstappen by the looks of things. He seems to be pulling off to the side of the road. I wonder if there's going to be another safety car. Meanwhile, Piastri and Leclerc have pitted again, and we're going to see where we come out in relation to them. If that is a safety car, then we're going to be relegated down into 4th. And what this also means is that Alex Albon has taken the lead of the Grand Prix. Legitimately, he is in the net lead of the race by 9 seconds. Leclerc has to catch him up by almost 10 seconds if he wants to win this Grand Prix. I think Albon could actually be on for his first ever Grand Prix victory here. But you can see now as we move on to lap 28, Leclerc has caught him up very quickly. He's only 2.5 seconds behind him, and I think Leclerc might be able to get him before the end of the Grand Prix. It will still be a fantastic result, his best ever result in Formula 1 of P2 for Alex Albon. And yeah, you can see Oscar Piastri dives up my inside there. We go around the outside and then make a bit of contact there as we try and keep on him. And yeah, we end up managing to make that move back. I simply wrote in my notes for this lap, I wrote, I'm really taking the piss now. And yeah, I think that's a very accurate description of what was happening here. He was quite clearly ahead into a lot of these corners, and I was just massively squeezing him out. You know, I'm surprised that I didn't jeopardize his race further by doing this, because really I was just, by this point, you know, we're on 0.3 positive to the amount of fuel that we need at this sort of stage in the race, and there's still 7 laps to go. You know, I could burn that all in 1 lap if I wanted to. So yeah, I had to be very, very careful. I was really just driving like an old lady by this point, trying to get the car to the end of the Grand Prix in one piece. The fact that I was in P3 was remarkable. You can see the amount of lift and coast I've done has meant that Albon and Leclerc have managed to pull a 30-second gap on me, and Leclerc only pitted 7 laps ago, something like that. And he was only a slight margin ahead of me when he came out of the pits, maybe a few seconds. So they were lapping, yeah, about 3 or 4 seconds a lap faster than me on average, with the amount of lift and coast I was doing. You know, my best lap was my 2nd lap of the Grand Prix, where I did a 1:19.2, and now my average sort of lap time is a 1:22. So yeah, I really was not driving in a very healthy manner at all. Norris has managed to make his way up into P5, so we'll only be extending the advantage to him by about 5 points or so. As Leclerc crosses the line, we're barely out of Sector 1. I think, you know, if things had materialised differently in that race, we could have been seeing Charles Leclerc lapping the entire field, potentially. But as things stood, that didn't materialise in that fashion. So yeah, we were quite lucky to sort of hold on to this position, and all I can say really is this is one of the most embarrassing races I've ever had to do in Formula 1. But when you're fighting for a championship, you have to take everything you can possibly get, and that's what I did. You know, I had to drive like I was trying to win a world championship, and that's what I did. You know, I went for every dodgy move I possibly could, and we cross the line and we take P3.
Well done, good finish. You stepped up and achieved what we asked.
That was honestly one of the worst races I've ever had to do in this game, and I will never ever make that mistake on fuel again.
Great effort there from Ferrari to take the victory today. Well, Anthony Davidson, a resounding victory today, but what set them apart from the rest?
Well, you know what they say, to finish first you have to finish. And that fact was clear today, with lots of retirements having a big effect on the outcome of the race. As a driver, you tend to keep reliability concerns to the back of your mind and just focus on what's in front of you. But for the teams, races like this can be very stressful.
Here come our winners now, a thrilling race and a tremendous effort by Ferrari. Their history is well known, so it's no surprise to fans the world over to see them come out on top once again.
Charles Leclerc takes the victory. He is an outside threat of winning the championship, but you know, with me and Norris scoring points in that race, that definitely makes it harder for Leclerc to get back in the championship. Really, he has to have me and Norris to have a atrocious run of form. And whilst that wasn't my finest race on, when you look at it, I did still score 15 points. So I can't be too disappointed.
So let's review the drivers' standings. Robinson increases their championship lead. Some amazing talent out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
It's got to be Lando Norris, hasn't it? Smooth, confident and assured. I've got no doubt that he and his team are going to be over the moon with his performance today.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. The current leaders continue to extend their lead at the top. Meanwhile, Ferrari have improved their position. A strong weekend for them as they fight their way towards the top. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
So Leclerc is actually slowly working his way back into this championship. If me and Norris have too many more poor races, he could still win it. There is nothing to say that he won't still win this. With 3 races to go, he's only 42 points away. So he's going to need things to go pretty wrong for myself and Norris, but it could definitely still happen. Yeah, from my side, I would have taken a podium finish, because this is actually my first podium in Formula One since that win in Austria 7 or 8 races ago now. I don't remember how many races it was at this point, but it was a long time ago. And yeah, if we hadn't have made that error on fuel, or even if we'd only underfueled by a couple of laps compared to what they gave us, we probably would have been absolutely fine to push for the majority of that race. And then I think I would have taken a considerably comfortable victory. I seemed like the fastest person on track all throughout qualifying and practice. So to walk away with P3 when that was the case is a tad disappointing. But when you look at the fact that it was looking very sketchy that I was even going to finish that race, I will take P3 every day of the year. We outscored Lando Norris. We're now 7 points ahead of him in the championship. Meanwhile, in the Constructors' Championship, we've extended further ahead as well. But Ferrari have actually, I think, made up a position or two, as McLaren only had 1 car finishing in the points. Red Bull didn't have either cars finish the race. It's looking like this championship is wrapped up for us on the Constructors' front. We just need to make sure we don't bottle it by getting double DNFs in every race going forward. The Drivers' Championship, it's really still up for grabs between myself and Norris. I think Leclerc is a very outside chance. He could maybe still do it, but I would think that, like I said, things would have to go very wrong for myself and Norris in order for it to happen. And to make matters worse, we are taking a grid penalty in the next race. It'll be a gearbox penalty. I can't remember if that's 5 or 10 grid places. Either way, we're going to have quite a lot of work to do to cover off Norris in the following race, and then we're going to just have to hope that we have a strong performance in both Brazil and Abu Dhabi, like we know we can, because we have done in the past. We've won races in both of those circuits before. But in any case, we're going to have to push as hard as we possibly can. We can't make another error like that on fuel. This season has honestly been the biggest comedy of errors from my side, and I cannot believe we are still leading this World Championship. I'm actually awestruck at the fact that we're still leading this championship, quite frankly, because if you compare this season to last season, I was doing everything right all of the time. We were nailing strategies. We were going so fast in qualifying. We were defending amazingly in the race. And this season, we just haven't been doing any of that. And we're still leading the World Championship. Will I win? You'll have to find out. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can catch the following races in Portugal, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi. And hopefully I will see you in the next one.